right now. And we're live on episode number 5, baby. Episode number 5 of Mind Over Marketing.
We're live on episode 5.
I like that. It's got a good ring to it, hey?
It does.
I wish all episodes could be episode 5. We can have that little jingle at the beginning. Live on episode 5.
We're going to have 25 and 35. We'll have quite
Very
a few.
good point.
Yeah, we'll have a few. 1,005.
Yes.
1
billion and 5.
Yeah.
1 billion. So we got a lot of fun to talk about again. We're going to talk about something that everybody has. And they're kind of like assholes, I guess, because they all stink. Everyone's got them, right?
Yep. They all have them. And it's not opinions.
No.
They're fucking excuses.
Yeah, they're excuses.
And I was the worst. These are one thing. And if we can start, really what it comes down to it is the way I would look at it as being you either make excuses or you take responsibility. And so there's a difference between for me, my entire life up until 23 was blame everyone else and accept zero responsibility for all of my shit.
It's way easier that way.
Oh, way easier.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
it's comfortable too.
You know what?
Yeah.
I don't know about it. You think it's easier.
Well, yeah. Well, because it's something familiar, maybe.
Yeah. So it seems like it's easier, but if you look back in hindsight, you're like, that was fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's what I've become fascinated with, and again, it's something I struggle with too, is having radical responsibility. So everything in our life is up to us. If it is to be, it's up to me. I always love that quote. And so starting from the beginning, I had more excuses than you could possibly imagine about everything.
You can shake a stick at.
Oh, easily. I blamed everything. It was I had an excuse for why I didn't do my homework. I had an excuse why I didn't show up for practice. I had an excuse for why I didn't show up in my business. Everywhere. It showed up absolutely everywhere in my life. And you don't get to create much fun stuff from there. No. I agree. I concur with that one. I'll agree with you on that one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when it comes to excuses, man, I was a really, really what's the word? An excuse maker, an excusee. I don't know. I was the mayor of Excuse Town.
Excuse.
So that was my life, But it's so. But in that place, why do we? If we look at it, why do we create excuses? I think for myself, like we were saying, for me, when I was creating excuses, it was my way of kind of getting. I couldn't be blamed for something if I had an excuse for it. It was kind of my way around things and how I would skirt around things. But if we constantly, whatever we make an excuse for, if we make any excuse at all, what we're really saying is that it wasn't our fault and we didn't create it. And if we go back to we're the deliberate creators of our own reality, everything's our fault.
Yes.
And the thing is if we're not willing to accept responsibility for all the bad shit, we don't get to accept. Everyone wants to accept the responsibility for all the great stuff.
Yeah, that was me.
That was me.
Yep. That was this guy over here.
We did all this.
Yep.
Well, what about this stuff over here? No, that was Bob. That was my teacher.
Yeah, dude, it was my cell phone. I had the alarm set on it, and it didn't go off.
Yep.
And my assistant didn't tell me about my schedule that I had set up today. And when I did this, I could come up with a lot. I could explain my daily routine on that.
Yeah. So basically, it's a way to escape responsibility.
Yes.
But if we escape responsibility, because if we want to accept responsibility for the good, we have to accept responsibility for the bad. If we're not willing to accept responsibility for the bad, then we can't accept responsibility for the good. And what we're doing is we're saying that we have zero ability to create, and the world happens to us.
Zero control.
Zero.
Yeah.
What can you do in that space? You literally can't do anything. Whereas one of the most liberating things for me anyways was the minute I started accepting responsibility for shit that wasn't even my fault. Because even I legitimately believed it was not my fault. Yeah. But if I believe I'm the creator of my reality, at some point it was.
Yeah. It was your choice or lack of choice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I could have done something to prevent it. Even though someone else did it, I could have stopped it. I could have done something. There's always something that I could have done. Yeah. But now I'm going, you know what? I created that scenario that's not necessarily the greatest spot, but I did it. Yeah. So then I get to accept responsibility for all the good shit. Now I'm creating. And I get to sit in that place where that's where life gets fun. And it's
creation, man. That's the fun stuff. Yeah, dude, when you're creating things, it's just when we become inspired, that's where creation really comes from, I think. Absolutely. Real cool stuff, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, accepting that shit, getting in the zone, getting in the vibe, getting aligned, and then it just like and then that's when things start lining up because you take responsibility for the shit and the good, and you see every perspective of it, because when we become fully aware of what's going on, right? These are the hands that create what I'm creating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So if we were to look at it like excuses, and if we were to break down, like, why is it that we create excuses? Like, why? Obviously, everyone does it. We do it too. Like, we're still going to be doing it. Why? Like, what's the psychology behind why people create excuses when you really kind of go?
Well, I think a big part too is the programming, right? It's what you're surrounded with, you know, growing up, whether it's, you know, mother and father, brother and sister saying, she did it, he did it, you know, I didn't, you know, I don't know, what's something I used to do as a kid. Stomp around in the kitchen when there's like a cake cooking or something, and it flattens the cake or something. Wasn't me. I didn't run through the kitchen. Yeah. It was my brother. Right? He did it. Well, it's his fault. He chased me through the kitchen. Right? And then he get kind of, you know, it wasn't me.
Right.
But yeah, like it's always.
So conditioning, programming.
And then going up through school.
Yeah.
Right? Seeing that kind of thing.
Dog ate my homework.
Yeah, because that's probably like where we feel like it fits best. A lot of the times you're going through school and it's like you don't meet a deadline. Well, you got to come up with a reason.
Yeah.
Because if you come up with a good enough reason, they'll believe you.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you come up with the note from the doctor, or you fudge a note from the doctor, or you get you talk your parents into signing off for you, right? Then it's off your shoulders. You feel it is.
Dude, that's a good point to even put it, because I think for me in school, that's where I knew that if I didn't do something, I learned really fucking early that I could make up a really fucking good reason and I would get out of it.
Yeah.
And so I built the program of like, fuck it, I do whatever, and I'll just make some shit up and I'll be good. Mm-hmm. You know? And so I avoided taking responsibility for everything. I avoided doing the things I needed to do because I just knew that like I could talk my way out of it.
Yeah.
And so when it really came down to where it hurt me so much in business is you don't get the luxury of doing that.
No.
You fucking cut corners and you don't do your shit and you don't get fucking paid.
Yeah.
It's not like, you know, at a job where you can fucking dick around, make up excuses, and you're getting paid by the hour, whether you do your shit or not, really. Yeah. You might get fired after a while, but like if you can talk a good game,
even if you can talk a good game, you might never get fired.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're just always in there under the table with the boss or whatever, and saying the things and making him feel happy, and you know, and just getting away with everything. But it's I think for me that's where the core of it came from was most likely school. Right, going through educational system and just finding ways to get out of it.
Yeah,
you know, a big thing for me growing up is I actually, you know, I was going through school racing and stuff, so I was racing the dirt bikes and snowmobiles and everything, and I always had the best excuse. I always had the best excuse, and my mom and dad would back me up on it every time, because a lot of the times we had to travel to go to a race. Yeah, so I would miss Fridays, or at least half a day of Friday. And a lot of times we would miss Mondays too, because we would get home after a long drive home. It would be late. Mom and dad would be like, don't worry about it. Don't have to go. Yeah. You know, you worked hard. You're probably sore, whatever. But I mean, on the flip side of that too, I always did well enough in school that they didn't feel. So they enabled me in a way to make the excuses, because they gave me the perfect excuse, because they allowed me to get away with it.
They signed off on it.
Yeah, they signed off. So mom and dad said it was okay.
Yeah.
So I had the perfect excuse. And then going into school, they're like, well, why didn't you get this done? Why didn't you meet the deadline? Well, I was gone for the last all weekend racing, you know, doing this, that, and the other. But I could also always get away with it because I always managed to figure out how to get good marks.
Yeah.
So then I would just leverage my girlfriend or whatever and do my homework.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Dude, I did that plenty of times. Oh, man. Yeah, I'll say that.
Yeah, I know, yeah. We could dive into that rabbit hole for a while on that one.
So if we look at it, we got conditioning, we got programming, we got school. Mm-hmm. Basically, we build up these patterns because we find out early on in life that, like, wait, we can either do the thing or we can just make shit up.
Yeah, because what do we do as humans? We always try to find the easiest, quickest shortcut, right?
Yeah.
So what can I do to do the least amount of work and get the biggest amount of payback?
Absolutely. And so that works in school. It works maybe at your job.
Yeah.
It does not fucking work in business.
No.
So just like the fucking poster right here, you can't deposit fucking excuses because you do that in business and it's like, cool. You're making the excuse to yourself.
Yeah.
You still don't get paid.
Oh, so you failed at another business venture.
Yeah.
Tell me about your story.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it was this guy's fault, that guy's fault. I partnered up with this guy and he screwed me and he ran away. Oh.
Cool. Here's your $1 million now.
Congratulations. So now what are you going to do about it? Because you're still sitting in the same spot.
Yeah. Nobody fucking cares. Yeah. That's the thing. And so it's like, at the end of the day, we are 100% responsible for our lives. So we can either go and we can create success or we create excuses is really what it comes down to. And so the one habit that I'm always going to be continuing to work on, and that by no means when I say this, do I mean that I'm perfect and I know how to do it, but the one thing that I started practicing on was, and how I started doing it was that how I wrapped my head around it was I would start accepting responsibility for shit that I legitimately thought was not my fault. So like, it's not about whose fault it was or what you might have a legitimate excuse.
Yeah.
But you can either play into the excuse or you can go look at it and go, you know what? How could I have prevented that situation? How could I, if there is anything that I could have done or not done to prevent that, I created it. It might seem shitty at the time, but now you accepted responsibility for the bad. You have earned the right to accept the responsibility for the good. Yeah. And so it's one thing to practice where it's like, and plus like, it's one of the most, like, no one wants to accept responsibility for shit. So the minute you start doing it
for bad shit,
yeah. Right? for bad shit, right? Sure. So the minute you start doing it though, like I started noticing other people like right away going like, oh, you know what? No, that what? You know, like now that,
dude, because when you step up and lead by example,
yeah,
right? Because I mean, like when it comes down to it too, it's like, and like same as me, like I'm not a master at this shit at all. Like I do it all the time too, but it's like invest all that energy, the time, effort, and energy into coming up with a fucking story to create the excuse, and then convincing yourself to believe it, and then wasting all that energy to get other people to believe it, or just take all that time, effort, and energy and fucking fix it and make sure it never happens again and grow from it, or, you know, like get it moving forward.
This is the funniest thing to think about it that way.
Because you're doubling down on the energy invested. Because you have to put all this fucking energy into making up the story, and then you got to start back from square one anyway and fix the shit.
The funniest part about that, dude, and you've met my dad, so you have context to this.
Yeah.
The exact word for word of what he said was like, if you would spend half the amount of time that you fucking spend coming up with these elaborate bullshit fucking stories,
killing it.
You'd be doing awesome.
Yeah.
But I spent so much time. You know, it's funny. And then as soon as I started shifting that energy to focusing on the creating part, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, unless your passion is story writing.
Well,
then I guess maybe that's a good place to leverage it. If you're really good at creating excuses and going elaborate into these big story filled like adventurous journey excuses where it starts from like, hey man, you're 5 minutes late for coffee, and it goes into a half an hour explanation about the traffic and your fucking tire was flat, and then this guy fucking tried to jump you and steal your tire iron so you couldn't change your tire. Yeah,
I've had that happen.
Yeah, I know, man, and it wasn't my fault.
It wasn't. You know, so it's so when you can go to look at it, so where it really comes down, everyone's got excuses. We're not saying we don't. Everyone fucking does, and so it's like you have to come to terms with, okay, I'm either going to accept excuses, right, or I'm either going to create excuses, or I create results. I create success, and so. You know what? Again, at the end of the day, like if you're happy where you're at, you wake up every morning excited, you're pumped up, like you won. So if that means like you creating excuses and you enjoy it and you fucking live a life where you're happy with where you're at, you're fucking fine, right? Don't listen to right? But if you're trying to live a reality that's different from the one that currently exists, and you find yourself making excuses, then it's time to take like a little bit and let's self-reflect. Let's look at this. Because if we can start to look at where I started to look at it was like every time I would try to make an excuse, or even if I do make an excuse, I would look at, okay, well, how can I justify how that was actually not my fault, but how I created it?
How I can take responsibility.
How do I take responsibility for it, right? The victim responsible victim responsible exercise at the Awaken class really kind of got me into there too, because it was like, as soon as you can start doing that, like it's don't get me wrong, it's not something that, especially at first, that's fun. Like fuck, because it makes you feel like, oh, it's my fault. I think it's the word fault that really fucks us up. Where we're like, oh, it's your fault or it's my fault. Someone's fucking fault. Like it's your life. You in some way, shape, or form created it, and it's not good, bad, right, or wrong.
Yeah, it's what you attach to it, really.
Exactly. Yeah. It just is. And a lot of the times, the shit we end up making excuses for that we perceive as being a fault or something we did wrong had to happen for something good or better to come, right? Like, no one learns from shit that they do right.
No.
You gotta fuck shit up. So it's like, embrace the excuses, not excuses, but embrace the mistakes, accept responsibility for them, because it's part of the journey. Like, you're gonna make mistakes, right? And so you can make mistakes and blame it on other people and excuse it, like I did for the majority of my life, and I wouldn't suggest that. Or you can make mistakes, own it, go, you know what, that was me. Whether you really believe it was you or not, it was me, because I could either done something or not done something to prevent that. So I created it in one way, shape, or form. Awesome. What can I do to learn from that now? Because that's where we learn. We learn from mistakes. And if we were to change the framing, and instead of looking at mistakes as a bad thing and look at them and embrace them, that's how we grow. We don't learn. Like, I would have never ran a successful ad campaign in my entire fucking life had I not made 1,000 fucking mistakes that didn't work. Like, never. I would have not shot a successful ad video. I would have not run a successful business. I had to fuck up and adjust. Fuck up, adjust. Make a mistake, adjust. And eventually you get to the point of it works, but you're never going to get it right the first time. And you know what? If you do get it right the first time, the second time you do something, like, you're going to eventually gonna fuck shit up. And if anything, it does fuck you up if you get it right the first time. You go, oh.
Yeah, then when it's like, and then all of a sudden round 2, you're like, oh yeah, I got this, and you do it, and it's like, goes to shit, and you're like, oh my God, what do I do now? You're not set up for that. You're not set up to be able to push forward from it, because you went from here down to here, right? Instead of steady climbing up. I've experienced that before too.
Yeah.
Right? Because on my perspective, when I ran it wasn't my first ad campaign. I shouldn't say this in full on contrast. But for me, when I started with marketing, I screwed up, wasted definitely a few $100s for sure getting started. Yeah. But I hit an ad campaign that ran really well quickly. Yeah. And then it ran, and I was like, good, sick. And I just walked away, and I kept doing other stuff, growing other stuff. And then when my campaign started going flat, I was like, shit, and I'm scrambling. And then I was like, fail. I'm like, shit, how do I get this working again? Yeah. Right? Because I never had the experience of actually having to go through every one of those steps first. Yeah. So I had to start right from the beginning and cut it all down. Right? Didn't have that framework built, didn't have that infrastructure built from learning from all those mistakes the first time.
So, yeah, and so I was the opposite. Yeah. I didn't get the luxury of having, well, I don't know if it's a luxury or not, but I didn't get the win right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. I got punched in the face fucking over and over again, and just kept having to get back up, right? You're gonna get punched in the face. Like, I love when Gary talks about it all the time, where it's like being successful in entrepreneurship is like being willing to be punched in the face over and over again and just continue to get back up, right? You're gonna make those mistakes, but like it's about when you make those mistakes, what can you do differently and how can you adjust? If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, that's Einstein's definition of insanity, right? So it's not about doing the same thing over, but it's doing something, and it's a test, and you might make a mistake. Great, adjust. And then again, adjust, mistake, adjust, and eventually you get to the point. Everyone just wants to see, like, I start here, I go here, I win. You know? And it's like they draw. It's like, start, success, yay. And it never fucking goes like that. Like it's like up, fuck up, this, fucked up, this, there, this way, fucking circles.
That's it. That's the compound effect. I think they show that in the book where they're like exponential growth, and they're like, is it compound effect? Oh no, maybe it's a different book. Anyways, yeah, it's that diagram where it's like it shows exponential growth like this, right? On the 40,000 foot view. Yeah. And then it's like, and then it zooms in, and it's like up, down, spin loops, up around the corners. This is really what it actually looks like.
Yeah. Right. And I think that's a big thing, and it might be why, like, I think it's good to have a realistic expectation of that and know that, and like going into business, because I truly believe the only way to have true freedom is through some sort of entrepreneurship. Otherwise, you're trading time for money. Yeah. So trading time for money is like the worst way to make money ever, because you're limited by the 24 hours you have in a day, right? So entrepreneurship's the only way where you can have leverage and you're not trading time for money. You're trading value for money, which doesn't necessarily mean your time. You can hire people and have infrastructure in place to build all that out. So, and it can be a small or big or whatever. But if we understand that, then okay, great. That's where we're going to go. Well, we need to understand that if we want to, again, accept responsibility for the great, we have to accept responsibility for the bad. So all the mistakes that happen, great. Like if we can change the framing that we look at mistakes where we now become excited. You know what? This will tie into like the one way how I'm able to do this a lot easier and kind of embrace mistakes to allow me, because you don't embrace the mistakes and you make an excuse for them, right? Or you embrace them. And so you need to come up with a way for yourself to be able to justify how you're embracing, at least I did, for mistakes. How do I justify me not making an excuse and accepting responsibility for this? And the one quote that sticks out to me, and this was, I just shot a podcast episode for the Jay-Z podcast, and we did what came up, because he was like, how can you look at, scenarios like this and like be okay? Like the one quote that always sticks out, every temporary defeat comes with a seed of equal or greater benefit. And I read that in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and I had no idea what that meant. And it wasn't until going through the breakthrough experience with Dr. John DeMartini where he starts talking about your entire life is in balance. You can't live in a life that's only positives, no negatives. Everything has to balance out. So if I could look at that, I know if I want to live the highest of the highs, I also have to experience the lowest of the lows. It's going to balance like that. So if I can, it's when that's a surprise to you that it really fucks you up. Yeah. If you know going in, like I'm going to deal with shit like that, then when it comes up, I go, oh, there's one of those things, right? And I know that no matter how bad this is, as long as I accept responsibility for it and I don't make an excuse and I accept this was me and I created it, I know something just as good, if not better, is going to come to balance it out. Yep. If I make an excuse for it, I don't really get to experience that level of luxury, because I'll make an excuse and I won't do the thing and I won't continue moving and I won't, it won't work out that way. So like I always, when I look into anything and how I'm able to accept responsibility for mistakes or for things that don't go my way or for everything in my life, I kind of look at any of those seemingly like negative experiences as being like that. I believe everything in our lives happens perfectly, and it might not be like, hindsight's always 20/20. It might not be at that point in time where you're like, how is me crashing and totaling my car serving me? Yeah. But like, who knows all of the different things that could have happened had I not done, in certain scenarios, or opportunities now that have now come up because of that happening. So it's like when we can look at those things, accept responsibility, understand that everything in our life happens perfectly in balance. And so as long as we're willing to accept responsibility for those mistakes and know that because of this as bad as it is, even if it's no matter how bad it is, something just as good, if not better, has to happen to balance it out. So I'm perfectly fine with accepting responsibility for shit. Yeah. Even if I think it's someone else, you know what? I could have stopped it. At some way, shape, or form, it's me. As soon as I can accept responsibility for that. And then my mindset is always, what great thing has to happen now to balance this out. Right? And now I'm looking in. So now my intention and focus is what awesome thing has to happen. And again, whatever we see is going back to compound effect. I mean, when you're looking to buy a car and you go to buy an X6 or whatever car, and all of a sudden you see a million of them everywhere, only because the intention and focus is there. If your intention and focus is on excuses, what are you going to find everywhere? You're going to find
all excuses.
Fucking kinds. Right?
Oh man.
And so it's funny. So it's one simple little practice that will be difficult to start. I don't even like using the word difficult, but it will be
just different.
It'll be different.
It may be different than what you're used to. So now it's like it's coming from a place of just being aware that the excuse is happening.
Yep. Absolutely. And again, like I will come up with excuses and have to catch myself. I'm not perfect by any means. I still make mistakes and I still have to learn from them. Mm-hmm. Even us just having this podcast right now is making me become aware of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is something I need to focus on more. So, and so it's as soon as we can just put the ego to the side, don't worry about it. Who cares? Like, it's almost like you make the excuse because you're worried that, for me sometimes where it's like, then someone's going to be like, oh, you fucked that up, or you did this, or see, I told you. And you know what I mean? So if I make an excuse, it's like, no, it wasn't me though. It was that dude. Yeah. It's not my fault.
Well, but it comes from a place too, like what you were saying earlier, when we can lead by example with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, like you said, like, even if we can't see how it would be our fault, but we can look at it from that new perspective, that new angle, and be like, you know what? Somewhere down the line, I definitely am responsible for this.
Yep.
Some way, shape, or form. And when that continues to happen, leading by example with that, the people around you, maybe if they're involved with it or not, they'll start looking at it and be like, oh, shit. You know what? I did that and he has no idea, right? And I totally did that and he has no idea that it's actually me that did that thing or did that action. And now it comes from a place where they start taking responsibility as well, and it ripples on with that.
Yep.
Right?
Oh, yeah. And it's amazing to see too as well your experiences with relationships or with when you're dealing with someone and you normally, so for me, when I normally would make excuses all the time, those conversations, like I would constantly make excuses. So like my reputation was that I made excuses.
Right.
So they would assume it and I make an excuse. They're like, fuck you, you're full of shit.
It's like the boy who cries wolf or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Over and over after a while, they're just like, shut up, bro.
Just shut up every time.
Here comes Aaron. He's going to come up with another bullshit story.
Yeah. Right. But it's you flip that
Yeah.
and you now go, and every time something happens, you accept responsibility for it. Mm-hmm. You get a lot more, people are a lot more lenient with that. They just respect the fact that you're just being, you know what? I just appreciate that you owned it.
Yeah. And it attracts people to you, and it's going to bring in more opportunity as well.
Absolutely.
Right? Opens those windows.
Absolutely. So with that being said, when we go through and we look at everyone's got excuses, we all fucking do. And if we can replace our excuses with radical responsibility for our actions, even when we're in the space that we genuinely believe that it wasn't our fault, if we were able to look back and go, how in what way, shape, or form did something that I did or something I didn't do, could that have fixed the, you know what I mean? Could I have created that? Yeah. So in one way, shape, or form, could I have stopped or prevented or done it by doing or not doing something? And if the answer is yes, which 100% of the time it will be yes, right? Then we can go, okay, you know what? That's fine. It's not bad. You know what I mean? It's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Great. You made a mistake. Something happened. Cool. What are we going to do about it?
Oh, you're a human being.
You're a human being.
Congratulations. You made a mistake.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And because the thing is, you can make an excuse, but no one fucking cares.
No. And it's just a big time and energy and effort waster.
Absolutely. So I'd love to see, based on this, like what maybe it's something that you, if you find yourself in certain situations where you find like, oh, whenever these types of things happen, I make excuses. I'd love to get some feedback from you guys, in whether it's the review section of here. Let us know your biggest takeaway from here. Whether it's maybe, you know what, I need to start taking more responsibility for my life, or I find myself in these situations and making excuses. So what I'm going to do from this point forward is I'm going to make sure that whenever that comes up, because it's a pattern, right? It's going to come up. It's about when that pattern comes up, you go, hey, whoa, what am I going to do differently now? Because if I want to get a different result in my life, I have to start doing different things. And so instead of letting those excuses run you, taking responsibility, it'll be one of the most liberating things that you do, because it really puts that power in your hands, and you do now have the ability to create, because you're accepting responsibility for not only the bad, but also the good now. Yep. And so what would be the biggest takeaway? How would you actually apply this to your life, to your business, to your career? Would love to get the feedback there. If you haven't already, be sure to go jump in our Facebook group, www.facebook.com/groups/mind over marketing. Be sure to jump in there for all of our exclusive content. We're going to have sneak peeks to live episodes before they go live. You know, any resources from anything that we recommend as we're going, will all be inside of that group. We'll be going live periodically in there, and you'll get access to exclusive content and be able to provide feedback on new content that you guys want to see, or new topics you want covered, or maybe you want to see certain people that are going to be coming out as we continue moving forward. We're going to be having a lot more people popping out. So really looking forward to seeing the feedback from you guys. We're just having a blast doing it.
Yeah, dude.
So it's fun, man. It's fun.
And this is like just the beginning, bro. I love it. Sweet.
Love it. So, that being said, leave us a review. Let us know your biggest takeaway. Jump in the Facebook group if you haven't already. And we will see you or hear you, or you'll hear us. Hear us.
Hear us. We'll hear you guys when you speak to us in the Facebook group. And then you can hear us on iTunes and watch us in Facebook and stuff. Right?
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Love and appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, please follow the channel, Mind Over Marketing on iTunes. Jump in the Facebook group. Leave us a review. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you guys so much.
Peace.
We out here.